Hi there, good evening. Hope you had a great Sunday. And now it's time to look forward to the coming week. Welcome back to this week's edition of Looking Forward. The show is about stories that are shaping up over the coming days and weeks. News that is developing and would have consequences for your life and mine and impact our choices. Stories that shape India's and world's politics and economics going forward. So let's get going. Tonight's edition packs a punch with 5 big news developments that are to take place over the week and beyond. Story number 1 ushers in the winter session of Parliament tomorrow. As the opposition seeks to put the Treasury benches on the mat over the SIR issue, the government would want an ideological reveal over Vande Mataram perhaps. And then there is the legislative agenda, of course. A national security and public health cess on certain goods like cigarettes. Story number 2 would give you a lowdown on the Russian President Vladimir Putin's first state visit to New Delhi since the Ukraine war began. Against global tensions and advancing US-Ukraine peace talks, this summit puts India's strategic autonomy and diplomacy under the spotlight, with defense and energy ties taking center stage. Story number 3 tonight takes us to Moscow, where US envoy or presidential envoy Steve Witkoff arrives for high-stakes talks amid diplomatic turmoil and conflicting peace claims over Ukraine, whether we have a deal or not. Did Trump jump the gun? More importantly, did he read from a Russian wish list? That's the talk. Story number 4 takes us to West Bengal, back home, where the Mamata Banerjee government has unexpectedly reversed course on the contentious Waqf Amendment Act after months of resistance. With the crucial deadline looming, we delve into what prompted this dramatic political shift in the state, not the first time on the SIR issue also. And finally, story number 5 is on the thawing of India-Canada trade relations after a prolonged freeze triggered by diplomatic tensions. With fresh talks set to resume, have we put the Trudeau era firmly behind us? Let's begin with the headlines first. As the Parliament meets for the winter session, the opposition gears up to raise the issue of special intensive revision of electoral rolls. Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiran Rijiju stated after an all-party meet today that the government was open to discussing electoral reforms, but SIR is an administrative process under the jurisdiction of the Election Commission. The Delhi police has filed a fresh FIR in the National Herald case naming Rahul Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi and Sam Pitroda. Yet again, the Delhi Police Economic Offences Wing has charged the three of alleged fraudulent transactions of over 2,000 crore rupees in response to a complaint filed by the Enforcement Directorate. The FIR has intensified possible political troubles for the Gandhi family as investigations into the newspaper's finances continue. We're in final stages in Chhattisgarh with a significant number of Maoists surrendering in Dantewada. 37 of them, including 12 women, laid their arms today, marking a major breakthrough in the government's efforts to curb left-wing extremism. Eastern coastal states remain on high alert. Delhi police has the Delhi police have busted a terror module arresting 3 terror suspects with ISI links. Eastern coastal states remain on high alert with cyclone Thaw moving northwards, causing torrential rains in the region. The cyclone had hit Sri Lanka before impacting Tamil Nadu, causing over 200 deaths in the country. The Indian Air Force, along with NDRF, are carrying out Operation Sagar Bandhu, a rescue operation for the flooded regions of Sri Lanka. Even as low-lying areas in Tamil Nadu, Puducherry and Andhra Pradesh are also being closely monitored. Last, Damocles sword hangs over Pakistan Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir as the notification extending his tenure and making him the first Chief of Defence Forces is pending due to Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's absence. Pakistan media reports suggested Munir might have to wait till Sharif returns from London, where he has gone to confabulate with his elder brother and former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. Welcome again. The winter session of Parliament is off the mark tomorrow. While the opposition shrill would make sure there's no chill, the government would expect some business transacted. Hot on the plate are 3 bills and many oaths for the new members in the Rajya Sabha. Then there are hot button issues for the government, a discussion on Vande Mataram, and for the opposition, an attempt to corner the treasury benches on the SIR and the BLO debts. For the citizens, of course, it's time to watch closely the actions of their representatives in the nation's highest panchayat and keep a record of who performed for them.
माननीय सभासदों, माननीय अध्यक्ष जी।
The winter session of the Parliament commences tomorrow, December 1st, 2025, and is scheduled to run until December 19th, spanning 19 days and 15 sittings.
Question number 101, Dushan Singh ji.
This session follows the disrupted monsoon session earlier in 2025 and comes amid the government's push for structural reforms post the NDA's Bihar Assembly election victory. The opposition, however, plans to raise issues like the special intensive revision of electoral rolls in 12 states and union territories, the Delhi blast, and foreign policy concerns potentially leading to heated battles. Discussions on Vande Mataram and its historical significance are also expected, with calls for its recitation in both houses.
सदन के अंदर अपनी सीट पे बैठिए। सदन स्थगित कर दूं? नहीं करना चाहते आप चर्चा?
जिस तरह से जल्दबाजी में SIR की जा रही है, इससे करोड़ों लोगों के वोट कटने की आशंका हो गई। गंभीर अनियमितता है, लोग आत्महत्या कर रहे हैं। देखिए, इस लड़के ने कल आत्महत्या की और चिट्ठी लंबी लिखी। देखिए, हम इस हाउस को नहीं चलने देंगे अगर SIR पर चर्चा नहीं होगी।
The Congress, walking on the footsteps of the Samajwadi Party, also plans to raise the issue of SIR and Delhi blast case.
इसमें हमारा मुख्य मुद्दा होगा कैसे लोकतंत्र की रक्षा हो, मतों के अधिकार की रक्षा कैसे हो, जो हमारा सबसे बहुमूल्य कोहिनूर हीरा मिला है देश की आज़ादी के बाद संविधान में। जिस तरह SIR कराई जा रही, इतने कम समय में तो एक जिले की नहीं हो सकती, पूरे प्रदेश की कैसे होगी। आतंकवादी गतिविधियां अब दिल्ली में आकर दस्तक दे रही, जिस तरह ब्लास्ट हुआ और जितनी रिकवरी है वो एक भयावह स्थिति है। पूरी तरह गृह मंत्रालय असफल हो गया है। और सबसे बड़ी बात है, जिस तरह लोकतंत्र की हत्या, वोटों के अधिकार छीने जा रहे हैं, वो हमारा मुख्य मुद्दा होगा।
Meanwhile, the CPIM has also decided to corner the government on the issue of SIR majorly.
The entire opposition parties want these SIR issues to be discussed. And if the people of Bihar have concurred with SIR, what is the harm in having a discussion on that? Sanjay Jha was saying that SIR has been debunked by the people of Bihar. Okay, then you discuss that. And I also quoted the statement of the Parliamentary Affairs Minister saying that if you widen the topic, we will discuss. He said that if you bring in reforms, we will discuss. Okay, let us bring in the electoral reforms. Let us bring the whole lot of issues that are concerning the electoral politics there. Let us widen the topic. We are for that.
The government, however, has made its stand firmly clear that the SIR exercise will continue despite opposition from India Alliance, and if need be, a discussion will be held in the parliament.
देखिए, SIR ये हमारे इलेक्शन कमीशन का काम है। वो एक स्वतंत्र निकाय है, निष्पक्ष निकाय है। हमारे देश में लंबे समय से वो काम कर रहा है। जब कांग्रेस शासन में थी या और जो लोग शासन में रहे, आज वो विपक्ष में होंगे, उनके समय भी तो इस तरह की प्रक्रियाएं होती रही है। तो ये तो कोई नई कोई प्रक्रिया नहीं है। मतदाता सूची साफ सुथरी होनी चाहिए, ये प्रयास चुनाव आयोग का होता है और इस दिशा में बिहार में अभी SIR संपन्न हुआ, उसके बाद चुनाव भी हुआ और विपक्ष को बिहार की जनता ने जवाब भी दिया है, उसके बावजूद भी वो मुद्दा बीच-बीच में उठाते रहते हैं।
The government aims for quote-unquote a constructive session with an all-party meeting held today to ensure smooth proceedings, though the opposition demands debates on non-EC processes like the SIR, which could spark disruptions.
36 political parties और 50 लीडर्स अटेंड किए इस पार्टी में, इस मीटिंग में। ऑल पार्टी जो लीडर फ्लोर लीडर्स का मीटिंग में 36 पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज एंड 50 लीडर्स पार्टिसिपेटेड। मैं सरकार की तरफ से आश्वासन देता हूं कि विंटर सेशन ऑफ द पार्लियामेंट अच्छी तरह से चलाने के लिए हम इस तरीके से विपक्ष के साथ बातचीत करते रहेंगे। साथ साथ मैं विपक्ष पार्टी नेताओं से भी अनुरोध करूंगा कि पार्लियामेंट को अच्छी तरह से चलाने में सहयोग करें।
माननीय अध्यक्ष जी।
The previous monsoon session from July 21st to August 21st was marked by frequent disruptions over issues like Bihar electoral rolls and Operation Sindoor, resulting in one of the lowest productivity levels in the 18th Lok Sabha.
सभा की कार्रवाई अनिश्चित काल के लिए स्थगित की जाती है।
I request the opposition leaders of TMC, DMK from Kerala not to fall in the trap of Congress. The Congress pulled the same thing in Bihar election also, and we have seen people of Bihar have shown the result. They said if you don't talk about the issues that are related to the common man, instead of that, if we waste time in the parliament, and they've shown the result in Bihar. And I request the opposition parties not to fall in the trap of Congress again and stall the parliament on this issue. If you do that, you'll see the same result in Bengal and Tamil Nadu and Kerala. So I request them not to do it.
Despite running for the full 21 scheduled days, Lok Sabha functioned only 37 hours out of the 120 scheduled, a dismal 31% productivity. Meanwhile, Rajya Sabha functioned for 41 hours and 15 minutes out of the approximately 106 scheduled, another dismal 38.8% of productivity.
देखिए, सर्वदलीय बैठक संसदीय परंपराओं के अनुरूप आयोजित की गई है और सभी दलों के जो फ्लोर लीडर्स हैं, प्रतिनिधि हैं, वो इस बैठक में उपस्थित हुए हैं। माननीय राजनाथ सिंह जी की अध्यक्षता में सभी लोगों ने अपने अपने पक्ष रखे हैं और 14 बिल्स इस बार लिस्टेड हैं। सरकार की ये कोशिश होगी कि ये 15 दिन का हमारा जो वर्किंग डेज है विंटर सेशन में सुचारू ढंग से चले और सरकार की ओर से सभी राजनीतिक दलों से यही पेशकश की गई है कि सभी लोग सदन को सुचारू ढंग से चलाने में सहयोग करें और जो भी आवश्यक विषय हैं उस पर सरकार चर्चा के लिए समय भी निकालेगी। हमारी कोशिश होगी कि ये विंटर सेशन जो है इसका पूरी तरीके से जनहित में उपयोग हो सके।
The government has lined up around 10 bills for introduction, with a focus on opening sectors to private investment, easing compliance and consolidating regulations. Here's the summary of the key bills.
The major NDA alliance parties took up the issue of the infrastructure, the farmers, the policies and the bills to be introduced. Like there are many important bills like the Manipur Good and Tax Bill, Atomic Energy Bill and also National Highways, one financial bill which is about to come and tabled in this session of the parliament along with the other bills as well. In total there are 13 bills and one amendment which will be tabled in this session of the parliament. But major political parties only spoke about the SIR in this all-party meeting and therefore the government is continually stating the political parties not to disrupt the House but rather cooperate the session, cooperate the House in the functioning of the session. So tomorrow we'll get to see exactly how the House transpires and how the entire affair of the session will unfold from morning till evening.
Other notable mentions include the Manipur Goods and Service Tax Bill and Central Excise Bill, along with maritime reforms. On the very first day, The Lok Sabha is set to table 3 new bills, including the Manipur Goods and Service Tax Second Amendment Bill to bring Manipur's GST in line with Centre's new GST slabs, the Centre Excise Amendment Bill, which is likely to simplify the CGST norms, and the National Security Cess Bill, which will levy new cess to support government's national security and public health missions. Meanwhile, in Rajya Sabha, the 3 newly elected members of parliament from Jammu and Kashmir of the National Conference will be administered the oath of office by new Vice President C.P. Radhakrishnan, who will be presiding over the session for the first time since former Vice President Dhankar's ouster. The session's success will depend on balancing these reforms with opposition's demands, potentially avoiding the monsoon session's pitfalls for higher productivity.
You see, in the interest of democracy, opposition parties do need to, address issues which face the people. Now, in Bihar, we saw how this SIR became a very big issue. And with the BJP now moving towards West Bengal, and again, we are going to see that, this SIR issue is going to be a very big part of the entire electoral process of the state, where the BJP is determined, like the Prime Minister said, the Ganges flows from Patna to West Bengal. So what they are looking at is how to get back into power in West Bengal, and this is something which the Congress has, and Rahul Gandhi particularly has been facing this issue. He has been talking about it. He's been talking about how multiple votes are being cast by one person in different guises from different states, and how it's not a very fair and free election. So this issue does concern democracy. It does concern the people. It does concern the entire electoral process. So I think that the opposition is perfectly within its rights to take up this matter.
The problem of the Indian opposition is that they are the most disruptive ever. Their agenda is not to allow the government's agenda to go through. That's it. They don't want discussion. They don't want debate. Parliament is a place for policy, not permanent protests. And in spite of their efforts, we have managed to push through, and we have made sure that the functioning of the parliament does not get hampered. Even if you look at the last session of parliament, 12 out of the 14 bills introduced in Lok Sabha were passed. But, the opposition has a different agenda, but one goal: don't allow parliament to function. So at some time it's Pegasus, sometimes it's CA, sometimes it's Manipur, sometimes it's SIR. It can be anything at all. Their one agenda is do not allow the government to function, and I think that's terribly negative, and we need to put a full stop to this. The work of the parliament is not measured in the number of days we put into the parliament. It is actually measured in the kind of result we have. So if you look at the budget session, the productivity of Lok Sabha was 118%, and this is in spite of the opposition's disruptions.
Will the House function to its productivity, or will the opposition yet again resort to stalling of the session? The time will tell, starting tomorrow.
सभा की कार्रवाई अनिश्चित काल के लिए स्थगित की जाती है.
All right, moving on. In the midst of a world divided by war and tariffs, against the backdrop of an ICC arrest warrant and a grinding Ukraine conflict, Russian President Vladimir Putin is flying down to New Delhi. On December 4th and 5th, Putin will be on his first state visit to India since the Ukraine war began. Amidst advanced US-Ukraine peace talks, this summit tests India's doctrine of peace and strategic autonomy, hosting President Putin despite Western pressure, while deepening defense and energy ties that have weathered Trump's tariff storm. As Modi's peace mantra echoes, we unpack why Putin chose India now. The S-400 success story, the Su or Sukhoi 57 revival, and how New Delhi balances Washington to protect national interests.
Putin's world travel has shrunk dramatically since Ukraine. With the ICC warrant in place, Putin's foreign visits have been limited. Sometimes North Korea, sometimes China. Dropped from the G8, Putin has been attending even the BRICS summit virtually. But something changed this year when Prime Minister Modi and President Putin shared a candid, long conversation inside the Russian president's limousine in Tianjin en route to their bilateral summit venue.
The last 10-11 years, Prime Minister Modi has also made a very personal relationship with the President Putin. And, as you can see, the global geopolitics has changed. Politics within India has also changed. There is also change in Russia, but India-Russia partnership has been very stable. This has shown by all, many recent, not just only by meetings, but, we can see that even during the Ukraine war, India has continued to take a very neutral position.
Now, despite the warrant, Putin is set to visit for a full 2-day Indian state visit, an honor India extends to him as a non-ICC state.
If a sovereign country decide to host any political leader, I think the countries have a right to do that. In fact, there has also been ICC warrant against the Israeli Prime Minister, but he has also visited many countries. So it's up to the, because these are more or less political, I would say, judgments. So countries decide on their own, within their own foreign policy, what they want to, how they want to conduct their foreign policy.
The timing of this visit is electric. Putin arrives amid US-Ukraine peace deal endgame. Meanwhile, India's position on the matter is consistent.
This is not an era of war. But it is one of dialogue and diplomacy.
President Putin's Delhi trip has been long previewing. NSA Ajit Doval and External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar made multiple Moscow visits throughout 2025, keeping channels consistently warm.
We have had high-level engagements, and these relationships, these high-level engagements have contributed very substantially. We are very excited and delighted to learn about the visit of His Excellency the President of Russia, President Putin, to India. I think that the dates are almost finalized now.
This particular occasion, for me, is all the more important as we prepare for President Putin's visit to India for the 23rd Annual Summit. A number of bilateral agreements, initiatives and projects are under discussion in various fields. We look forward to the finalization in the coming days. This will certainly add more substance and texture to our special and privileged strategic partnership.
India has maintained the strategic partnership despite the global headwinds and Trump's browbeating over Russian oil.
He's a friend of mine. We have a great relationship. I was not happy that India was buying oil, and he assured me today that they will not be buying oil from Russia. That's a big stop. Now I got to get China to do the same thing.
Before the war, Russian crude accounted for just 2% of India's imports. Post-sanctions, that share peaked above 40%, saving New Delhi over $17 billion in discounts. But in August, however, Trump imposed the world's highest tariffs on India in retaliation.
Well, buying oil from Russia has become a litmus test for the India's strategic autonomy. There has been certain pressure from the United States. In fact, not just only pressure, they have also put 25% tariffs on Indian goods entering the United States because India is buying Russian oil. Despite that, India continued to buy, and it has also shown that that the decision to buy oil it is an independent decision by companies depending on market conditions, and this has also stabilized global markets, and it has also improved India's energy security.
While India has strategically reduced crude imports slightly while ramping up US LNG purchases, its all-weather partnership with Russia endures, as demonstrated by Putin's forthcoming state visit.
Putin tries to find more and more partners in the world, and it's critical for him to have India, because this is one of the biggest countries with very big market and with needs to purchase arms and technologies, and he's the one who could provide it. So I'm not sure the cooperation in the defense sector will go on as it used to be. Maybe it's getting less, not that big as it used to be, because of this sanctions pressure, which is also not only on Russia but on India as well. So Narendra Modi has to, I think, has to find a way to escape sanctions pressure and at the same time to continue cooperation with Russia. It will be a challenge for India, I think.
This is because in defense, Russia still supplies 60% of India's combat aircraft inventory. Meanwhile, the S-400 Triumph system proved decisive during Operation Sindoor, emerging as a game-changer. Sources say that India is now seeking additional squadrons and missiles to replenish the stocks.
S-400 is one of the world's most effective air defense systems, the long-range air defense systems. And during Op Sindoor, it was extremely effective in hitting all Pakistani incoming air assets, whether they were missiles, including some of the aircrafts which were airborne, they were hit. So this missile has given us a lot of strategical and operational tactical advantages.
The Russians have their own agenda. They have been keen on selling the Su-57 fifth-generation fighter jet to India amid IAF's squadron strength crisis. While US has delayed Tejas engine deliveries, AMCA years away, and IAF's supposed rejection of the F-35 deal, Russia is now aggressively pitching the Su-57 with full technology transfer and Indian factories at the HAL Nashik, standing ready to modify and assemble.
The Indian Air Force will be very, very clear. They will carry out all analysis, and also what is kept in mind is the technical, technological aspect, but more than that, the economic aspect is also kept in mind. Tomorrow, if F-35s and Su-57s, there's just marginal difference of 19-20, then the cost factor becomes very, very important to us. And cost factor, I think, the past precedent shows that any equipment being imported from Russia is definitely much cheaper and more reliable, and therefore that itself shows that probably the best choice for India in the long run may be Su-57.
India-Russia bilateral trade hit $65 billion in 2024 with a $100 billion target, showcasing that Moscow and New Delhi are going strong.
In the situation we see now, the economy is really deteriorating. In Russia, it's getting worse and worse, and it's seen by all the people. Everything's getting more expensive. The prices go higher, and we see an inflation, and it's critical for Russian government to have more reliable partners to keep the economy up.
Despite their best efforts, West isolation of Moscow remains incomplete, with US-Ukraine talks reaching critical stages. Putin's India visit reinforces New Delhi's commitment to dialogue over confrontation.
I'm looking forward to my trip in early December, and I highly await my meeting with my dear friend, with our trustworthy partner, with Prime Minister Modi.
The December 4th to 5th summit represents India's multi-alignment doctrine at its most sophisticated. New Delhi is sending Washington an unmistakable message that while India partners through Quad, Russia remains the all-weather. As Modi welcomes Putin in Hyderabad House on December 5th, one principle stands supreme. India engages every major power on its own terms, talking to all, bending to none.
All right, in the midst of diplomatic chaos and frontline fury, against the backdrop of leaked calls and premature victory claims, US President's envoy Steve Witkoff flies to Moscow this week for high-stakes talks with Putin. Trump officials jumped the gun, claiming Ukraine agreed to a peace deal. But both Kiev and Moscow stayed silent. Amid the Witkoff leak storm, Putin defends the envoy as intelligent, as Russian strikes pound Vyshgorod and Tortesk. We unpack the red lines, European divides, and what Witkoff's Moscow gamble really means for Trump's endgame peace push.
Trump desperately wants his Ukraine peace win.
We're having good talks. We started with Russia. We're having some talks with Russia. Ukraine is doing well. I think they're pretty happy about it. They'd like to see it end.
Good afternoon, everybody.
However, last week, US officials once again jumped the gun, claiming Ukraine had accepted a deal. But both Ukraine and Russia have stayed tight-lipped.
Сьогодні ввечері, за американським часом, українська делегація вже має бути в Сполучених Штатах Америки і буде продовжений діалог на основі пунктів з Женеви. Дипломатія залишається активною. Американська сторона проявляє конструктив і цілком реально найближчими днями доопрацювати кроки, щоб визначити, як достойно закінчити війну. Українська делегація має необхідні директиви.
While Zelensky has confirmed talks continue, there is no deal yet. And despite the leak storm last month in US media alleging alleged call leaks showing Witkoff coaching Kremlin aides, saying that Trump is giving them quote-unquote space and discretion, Trump's troubleshooter Witkoff is headed to Moscow this week.
Steve Witkoff is going over, maybe with Jared. I'm not sure about Jared going, but he's involved in the process. Smart guy, and they're going to be meeting with President Putin, I believe, next week in Moscow.
While there is fury in Washington, D.C., Putin is defending Witkoff, making the matter entirely worse.
The leak of the conversation between Witkoff and the Russians, and then the leak of the later conversation between two Russians talking about what should be the Russian strategy with President of the United States, Donald Trump, shows that there is a division within the administration in terms of how Russia should be dealt with and whether or not Ukraine's sovereignty is worth saving.
It is not surprising for Ukrainians to hear in those tapes released by Bloomberg agency that Witkoff was actually coaching Russians how to speak to Trump. It was already very clear that Trump and Witkoff, they are taking more pro-Russian position. It's very obvious. When in tapes we see that actually he is helping Russians to learn how to influence Trump. Of course, we don't think this is right. He is the diplomat. He is the one who's representing American president. He should be advising American president. But it's up to American people and American leadership to decide whether it's acceptable thing for them.
И вдруг Соединенные Штаты объявляют о введении
санкции против двух наших нефтяных компаний. Это в связи с чем? Я вам честно говорю, я даже не понял, а что происходит-то? Вот. Поэтому обвинять господина Уиткофа в том, что он уж больно, значит, любезно обходится со своими российскими коллегами, не в чем. Ну, мы с ним говорили, встречались, повторяю, на Аляске, а потом бум, при полном здоровье нарождающихся новых отношений, санкций, которые разрушают наши отношения, безусловно.
Meanwhile, Russia intensifies its frontline attacks. Vyshegorod has been hit hard. 1 person has been killed, 11 injured. Kiev is also under drone and missile barrages. 2 have been reported dead over the weekend.
І зараз ще тривають роботи після нічного удару російських ракет і дронів. Масштабний був удар. Енергетика – основна ціль. Тут Росія не змінює свою тактику і досі намагається завдати Україні саме такого болю перед зимою. Важливо, що ми протидіємо. Важливо, що є збиття. 19 ракет вдалося збити.
And while Zelensky is blasting Russia through words, Putin is locking the front lines to favorable conditions.
Мы до сих пор значит, получаем заходы о прекращении боевых действий там. Войска Украины уйдут из занимаемых ими территорий. Вот тогда и прекратятся боевые действия. Не уйдут, мы добьемся этого вооруженным путем. Вот все. Порядок. Там уже 1000 фур прошло. Я думаю, что те на Западе, кто понимают, к чему это может привести.
And I thought this would be one of the easier ones because of my relationship with President Putin. But this is probably one of the more difficult ones. There's a lot of hatred.
Not much has changed since the negotiations in Geneva. The core red lines clash is still Ukraine rejecting territorial concessions.
Російська війна триває, і ми всі чуємо, що Росія плює на намагання ключових світових держав закінчити війну реально, тривалим миром. Але чи буде мир, залежить не від погроз Росії, не від того, які там ультиматуми звучать, а від того, які умови забезпечить світ.
Putin too is adamant. He demands international recognition of his gains.
Конечно, мы хотим договориться в конечном итоге с Украиной. Но это сейчас просто практически невозможно. Невозможно юридически. От них, кто может, кто хочет, тот пускай ведет переговоры. Нам нужно, чтобы наши решения были международно признаны основными международными игроками.
Meanwhile, the European Union is torn. On one hand, the Union is warning that Putin won't stop.
I'm often asked why we are so fixated on Russia's war against Ukraine when there are so many wars and conflicts affecting us all ongoing today, especially in the Middle East. But the answer is very simple. Russia's war in Ukraine is an existential threat. If Putin is not stopped, he will not stop.
And while the EU is expressing its skepticism on Putin's intentions, Hungary's Orban called on for peace and deepened energy cooperation with Russia this week when he was in Moscow, signaling that there is no complete consensus amongst European nations too for a peace strategy in Ukraine.
Ukrajna Magyarország szomszédja. Ukrajina – это сосед Венгрии. Ezért a háborúnak a hatása Magyarországra erőteljes. Поэтому Венгрия в полной мере ощущает влияние украинского конфликта на себе. Jelentős gazdasági veszteségeket szenvedünk el. В том числе неся ощутимые экономические потери. A katonai műveletek azok blokkolják a gazdasági növekedést egész Európában és így nálunk is. Потому что экономическое взаимодействие блокируется боевыми действиями. Это верно как в отношении Европы, так и в отношении нас. El fogom mondani önnek azt, amit a korábbi találkozóinkon is elmondtam, hogy Magyarország érdekelt a békében. Скажу также то, что говорил вам на нашей предыдущей встрече. Венгрия заинтересована в мире.
big question now is, did Trump jump the gun on acceptance?
You can't have a peace agreement with only using one side, namely the Russians. And it seems to me showing something which is untrue in regard to Ukraine. Ukraine has not signed on to this. Ukraine's European partners had not signed on to it. And immediately there were further discussions in Geneva, in Switzerland, about it.
Ukraine calls it a spin to pressure Zelensky.
Well, there is a plan, the initial plan that was developed with Dmitriev, that's the plan developed by Russians and by Americans, and this plan includes certain aspects to which Ukraine will never agree, to which Europe will never agree, because those things can eventually lead to even bigger war in Europe, even bigger Russian invasion, lack of security in the future. So those are non-starters, and that's why even Trump himself now recognized that he will not be pressuring Zelensky too much.
Ukrainians are adamant on guarantees. US is pushing for a deal first and guarantees later.
Well, the deal breaker for Ukraine are security guarantees. The most important thing is that Russia does not use this plan as something to just take a little pause in the war and then go and reinvade Ukraine and use their territory, which it already occupied, just as a platform from which it will be invading further into Ukraine.
It's completely unrealistic to say you do deal first and you do commitments on security later. The whole point is not to appease Russia and be sort of a Neville Chamberlain going to Munich for peace in our time, which did not work, but having long-term peace on the continent, which affects peace everywhere in the world.
Meanwhile, Moscow says it is ready for serious discussions as it sees US positioning towards them.
I think that it only demonstrates that Russia is ready for any type of dialogue with West countries, including the United States. Russia won't finish this war started by the West and by NATO on Ukraine, and a dialogue is going to be a good solution.
Ukraine knows the writing on the wall. A winter stalemate looms, making conditions ideal for a ceasefire.
Ukraine is ready for ceasefire any day, and ever since Trump started negotiating with the Russians about the peace agreement, Ukraine said that what we want is to have immediate ceasefire and then to keep negotiating about all those difficult matters. But the issue is that it is Russia who is not accepting the ceasefire.
Peace or deadlock? Time is running out. The front lines are hardening, and while the talks are still lying in fractures, the big question is, will Witkoff's Moscow trip break the impasse or expose the unbridgeable gaps? As winter bites, Trump's peace clock ticks louder.
Well, we'll keep close tabs of the developments there on that front. The Russia-Ukraine peace deal brokered by the United States. Moving on and back home, in a stunning political U-turn, West Bengal's Mamata Banerjee government has bowed to the centre's Waqf Amendment Act after months of fierce opposition. From courtroom battles to public defiance, TMC's resistance crumbles as the state scrambles to upload 80,000 plus Waqf properties by December 5th deadline, which is this week. What forced this dramatic about turn after the SIR surrender? Here's the inside story.
After making a political slugfest of the new Waqf law for months, The Mamata government of West Bengal has surrendered to the writ of the parliament.
और माइनॉरिटी लोगों को हम एक बात कहते हैं, देखिए आप लोगों को दिल में दुख हुआ है वॉका प्रॉपर्टी के लेके, आप भरोसा रखिए बंगाल में ऐसा कुछ नहीं होगा जिसमें कोई डिवाइड एंड रूल होगा। आप लोगों ने ये मैसेज दीजिए कि सबको एक साथ में रह के बचना है।
This was Mamata's pitch, clearly aimed at appeasing a section of electorate in the state. But now the same Mamata government has directed its minorities department to uphold information of 82,000 Waqf properties across the state on the centre's portal by December 5th. This order was issued for compliance by all Bengal districts by the Secretary of Minorities Department of the state. Most opposition states had refused to adopt the Waqf law as passed by the parliament in April this year, Bengal included. So what changed?
Number one, I don't see any U-turn in any of the acts by Srimati Mamata Banerjee. The thing is that, accepting the Waqf bill is something different, and what she has taken up right at the moment is, which was already, which had nothing to do with the entire Waqf bill, because earlier also there used to be a system called VAMSI, the earlier database that was being run by the center till 2024. It was called VAMSI, and VAMSI already had, these 80,000 properties registered over there. So it is only like registering the same data onto a new portal called Ummeed. I think the central government is still trying to confuse the people of West Bengal.
After the SIR, this is the second about turn by the Mamata government this month after political grandstanding with the centre.
একটা মানুষের যদি নাম বাদ যায়, একটা বৈধ ভোটারের যদি নাম বাদ যায়, বাংলা থেকে 1 লক্ষ লোক গিয়ে ইলেকশন কমিশনের অফিস ঘেরাও করবে। ক্ষমতা থাকলে অমিত শাহর দিল্লি পুলিশ আটকে দেখাক।
Despite some politicking, even the Election Commission mandated the SIR is getting implemented in West Bengal, with most TMC leaders cooperating.
আগে ওয়াকফ বিলের বিরোধিতায় ভারতবর্ষের যে ক্ষতি, ভারত সরকারের যে সমস্ত ক্ষতিগুলো করা হয়েছে, রেল পোড়ানো হয়েছে, স্টেশন ভাঙা হয়েছে, মানুষকে খুন করা হয়েছে, তার মূল্য বাংলার মুখ্যমন্ত্রী মমতা বন্দ্যোপাধ্যায়কে দিতে হবে। এবং ঘুরে 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 ওয়াকফ বিলের সম্মতি আজকের দিনে কেন?
And there is also the fact that TMC went to the court against the Waqf amendment but did not get a favourable order.
She has been provoking the minorities of West Bengal. We have seen Bengal burning for consecutively 2 days during the CAA issue. And now she again tried to play with fire, play with the lives and the emotions of the minorities by provoking them and misleading them in the Waqf bill, which has been finally made into law. So Mamata Banerjee and her ministers, now they have taken a U-turn. After 7 months of dilly-dallying, Mamata Banerjee had to give in. So this is a fact that it's a win by the central government, victory of the constitution.
Now over the next 5 days, the district administrations would hold meetings and workshops with Waqf administrators, while senior officials would monitor daily progress to meet the December 5th deadline.
On to some trade deal talk. In the shadow of a bitter diplomatic rift that froze trade talks for 2 years, Canada and India are now turning a new leaf. After Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's controversial speech in Parliament that deeply strained ties, his successor, Mark Carney, is pushing to resume negotiations on a comprehensive economic partnership agreement. This deal could double bilateral trade to up to $50 billion between India and Canada by 2030. Let's take a deep dive.
2 years on, Trudeau's pro-Khalistani speech in Parliament triggered a crisis. That moment chilled decades of stable India-Canada ties.
Over the past number of weeks, Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
India expelled Canadian High Commissioner and recalled its ambassador. Trade talks were stalled and bilateral warmth frozen in time. Now Trudeau's successor, Mark Carney, is pushing a fresh start. Talks resume this week. Modi and Carney met on the G20 sidelines in Johannesburg, showing a moment signaling Thaw and new priorities. Their first meeting since G7 in Canada earlier this year. With ambassadors back in place, dialogue is accelerating. Amid the US-Canada tariff war hitting historic lows, Canada seeks new partners. India battles Trump's tariffs, refusing to bow on issues of sovereignty and national interest. While India is vying for more market access, technological cooperation and energy deals, Canadian focus remains on tapping the potential in agri-tech, mineral deals, clean energy and innovation-led partnerships.
There's a lot that we can learn from Canada, a lot that we can offer Canada. We have tremendous potential on critical minerals, critical mineral processing technologies. We can diversify our supply chains on both sides of the ocean. We can focus on emerging technologies like artificial intelligence with data centers, quantum computing, machine learning, all new age technologies where India has very strategic benefits to offer.
Beyond the trade, the countries are nearing a $2.8 billion uranium deal, signaling strategic depth beyond economics.
This is an ongoing conversation that we have with Canada. This particular matter was also discussed when our Prime Minister met with Prime Minister Carney in Johannesburg. We shall keep you updated with developments, but it's an important part of India-Canada bilateral cooperation as to how we can further strengthen our civil nuclear cooperation.
The revived CEPA talks come at a crucial time. Both sides weigh concessions, market reform and dispute mechanisms.
As far as Canada is concerned, we all know that over the last few years, because of a buffoon called Dustbin Trudeau, the discussions that we were having on trade agreements were stalled because that man was a complete idiot. And he's finally met his doomsday and he's been booted out of all political circles. Now we are trying to repair our relationship as far as trade is concerned with Canada, and that is what we always do. We never hold a grudge against an individual or a government or a country for long. What is the benefit of a FTA? I've been a member of a group that has looked at this closely. The first benefit is, in theory, that it should give you access to markets. The Canadians are drooling over the size of the Indian market, 1.4 billion. Because the Chinese market is close to them, they are unable to do anything with Europe. Europe does not have the money. And so they are effectively looking at Bharat.
You have to understand what Canadian economic priorities are, and they don't really jive with what goes on in this side of the world. So how could Canada leverage it? Well, I mean, Canada could do a lot of things, right? They could, offer to give up on a lot of the narco-terrorism, Khalistani drug trafficking nonsense that undermines India geopolitically, and then leverage that for market access. But that would assume that Canada cares about two things. One would be safety and security of Canada and other allied nations, which we do not. And the other thing we would assume is we care about standard economic prosperity, which we do not either. Canada and Carney economics is very much not the standard economics that you would find. Like if India and the UAE want to do a trade deal, that's very easy to get done. Because India and the UAE will find, what do both people benefit from? Okay, what's a good price? And both leadership of the country would understand that general economic prosperity of either oil or goods or lumber or whatever it is would bring a net benefit to all the people and then bring them the adoration of the people in India and the UAE respectively.
With a $50 billion target by 2030, this deal could reshape both economies. India at the moment is balancing multiple free trade agreements, including one with United States, one with European Union, and now Canada adding to the list, managing priorities amidst the global trade volatility.
By 2004, we had moved from a 4% growth to an 8.4% growth. Inflation had come down from 8% to 4%. Forex reserves had grown 3x. Banking interest rates were amongst the lowest India had ever seen. A strong economy, despite sanctions and despite all the difficulties.
Basically, what we would like to do with all countries, irrespective of what we are doing with Canada or anybody else, when we discuss these, we first say that you should have transparency. There should be no arrogance. You shouldn't expect that we will lower our tariffs while you increase yours. Don't create non-tariff barriers because that doesn't benefit anybody. So mera apna manna hai, my own feeling is that the European Union, which really does very little intra-EU trade compared to its potential, and China is close to them almost permanently till the present regime is there because Europe has been misbehaving, so the Chinese claim with them. I have a feeling they also want to sign an agreement with India. We of course also want that the agreement should include the possibility of free movement of personnel. If our experts want to go there, if they have to be hired by European companies or American companies, then the barriers to their recruitment, to their hiring should be removed. Then it will be genuinely a partnership. Otherwise it becomes piecemeal.
As US-Canada trade tensions deepen, it is becoming another factor driving Canada closer to India.
No country wants to sort of take the initiative to gain upper ground. The Americans live in Americaverse, where there's bald eagles and guns going off, and they don't really see the rest of the world. It's sort of their classic charming cowboy ignorance of the rest of the world. And India is a very, very passive global player. They do not make the first move. They do not try and set the precedent. They try and, do deals and try and, do bilateral relations and don't try and get bogged down in these grand economic schemes. They're sort of a more passive player on the international scale, trying to sort of pick off deals here and there to sort of build economic links between them and other countries. It's very much not in Indian DNA to sort of push the initiative and leverage Canada and America relations for Indian gain. There's not really, you don't really have that dynamic soft power apparatus that would be needed to do something like that.
The reset between India and Canada promises more than numbers. It offers a recalibration of priorities and trust. As ambassadors return and talks ignite, the questions remain: will this new chapter deliver a game-changing partnership for two of the world's most dynamic democracies?